He saw me broken and said I was his world. Promised to fix me piece by piece. But when I finally trusted him, he erased every bit of who I was. But then, I turned every moment of his joy into the pain he could never escape. That's how it began, with words that felt like warmth in a life turned cold. I was sitting outside the hospital, numb, staring at nothing. My mother had just passed. Cancer had eaten her from the inside out, and with her went the last of what I called family. I had no siblings, no father, no one waiting for me. The paper bag in my lap crinkled softly in my grip, antidepressants, sedatives, instructions I didn't care to read. The air felt too heavy to breathe. That's when he found me, a stranger in a gray hoodie. He looked like any other guy passing by, but he didn't keep walking. He stopped, looked at me like he saw something more than just a girl grieving. "Are you okay?" he asked. I didn't answer. I couldn't. The question felt cruel. He didn't leave. Instead, he sat beside me. Just sat. Quiet. "You don't have to answer," he said after a minute. "You don't even have to talk. I've been where you are." I turned to look at him, surprised by the softness in his voice. His eyes weren't full of pity. They were full of understanding. "Aiden," he said, offering his hand. I didn't take it, but I whispered, "Elena." That's all it took. He didn't force anything. He just stayed. We watched the sky turn from gray to pitch black together. And when I finally cried, he didn't flinch. He just let me fall apart beside him. Over the next few days, he kept showing up. I didn't ask him to. He brought me food I didn't want, talked when I couldn't, and sat silently when I needed the world to just stop spinning. He didn't push. He didn't expect. He said I reminded him of someone, his sister. She was drowning too, he told me one evening. No one noticed until it was too late. "I see that same look in your eyes." I looked away, embarrassed. But he just smiled softly. "I won't let you fall like she did." That line stayed with me, echoed in my mind when I was alone. When the grief clawed at me like it wanted to devour every last piece of who I used to be. He made it seem like maybe I didn't have to be alone in the dark anymore. Weeks passed, and slowly, I let him in. He started texting every morning. "Did you eat? Need anything? I'm here." I started replying, then looking forward to those messages. One night, I had a nightmare so vivid I woke up screaming. Before I even knew what I was doing, I called him. And he came. No questions. No hesitation. Just warmth. He held me that night like I was made of glass. Like breaking again wasn't an option. "I'll piece you back together," he whispered into my hair. "Even if it takes forever." And I believed him. God help me, I believed every word. After that night, things changed. Not all at once, but enough that I started breathing again. Aiden became my anchor. He texted good morning and good night. Brought me tea instead of coffee because he remembered I hated the bitterness. He noticed the smallest things, when I flinched at loud sounds, when I hesitated before answering the phone, when I faked a smile. He never called me out. He just adjusted. I used to think love was fireworks and butterflies. With Aiden, it felt like safety. Like someone wrapping a blanket around your shoulders when you didn't even know you were cold. He didn't pressure me to talk about my past. But one night, curled up on his couch with rain tapping gently on the windows, I told him everything. About my mom. About the nights I sat by her hospital bed wishing the cancer would take her just so her pain would stop. About the guilt I carried every day since. I expected him to look at me differently after that. Maybe even pull away. But he just reached out and took my hand. "You were just a daughter who loved her mother," he said. "None of that was your fault." It broke something in me, something that had been buried under silence and shame. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. And Aiden held me through all of it. Whispering words that didn't try to fix me, just reminded me I wasn't alone. After that, I started rebuilding. Slowly. Carefully. I got a part-time job at a bookstore downtown. It wasn't much, but the scent of paper and ink grounded me. I started journaling again, something I hadn't done since I was a teenager. I even went back to therapy, encouraged by Aiden's constant, gentle nudges. And all through it, he was there. He made me laugh again, taught me how to cook, took me to a candlelit poetry night, even though I knew he hated spoken word but came anyway because he knew I loved it. He made it look like healing was possible, that I could trust him with the pieces of me that were still sharp and jagged. So when he said he loved me, I didn't hesitate. I said it back, not because I felt obligated, but because for the first time in my life, I meant it. He didn't ask me to move in, but he made space for me in his apartment. Half his closet was mine. I had a drawer in his bathroom, my favorite tea in his kitchen, and a framed photo of us smiling on his shelf. It felt like a future. It felt like I was being written into someone's story, not as a footnote or cautionary tale, but as the main character. I told myself he was different, that he wouldn't turn out like everyone else, that I wasn't just another broken thing for someone to fix and discard. But I should have listened to that whisper in the back of my mind, the one that told me no one gives without taking eventually. I ignored it. I ignored the way he started checking my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. I ignored how he got irritated when I made plans that didn't include him. I even ignored how he started making little comments about my clothes, my friends, my therapist. "You don't need anyone but me," he said once, smiling. Sweet. Like it was a compliment. It wasn't. It was a warning. But by the time I realized, I was already too far in. I had built my healing around him. And he knew it. Love doesn't disappear overnight. It erodes, quietly, slowly, until you wake up and realize you've been bleeding from wounds you didn't even know were there. The first time Aiden raised his voice at me, it was over something small. I had forgotten to text him when I got home from work. My phone had died, and I was tired. I walked into his apartment with an apology already on my lips. But he didn't let me speak. "Do you know what that did to me?" he snapped, slamming the fridge shut. "I thought something happened to you." "I'm sorry. You say that a lot." He cut me off, eyes dark. "But it doesn't mean anything if you keep making the same mistakes." I stood there, frozen. My heart pounded in my chest. I hated conflict. It reminded me of hospital hallways and beeping monitors and final breaths. But then, just like that, his expression softened. "I'm sorry," he said. I can't lose you. You're all I have, Elena." He pulled me into his arms, and I let him. Told myself he was just scared, that it came from love. But that wasn't the last time. The next fight was about the bookstore. My coworker, Josh, had offered to walk me home since it was raining. I mentioned it offhand, not thinking anything of it. Aiden didn't speak to me for an entire day. When I asked him what was wrong, he laughed bitterly. "You really don't see it, do you? You think I'm stupid?" "What are you talking about?" I asked, confused. "You and that guy. Don't play dumb." My stomach dropped. "Josh? He's gay, Aiden. He has a boyfriend." "Doesn't matter," he said coldly. "You shouldn't be letting anyone else protect you. That's my job." He didn't yell that time. But somehow, the quiet was worse. It felt calculated. Like he knew silence would cut deeper than shouting. I tried to fix things. I reassured him. I deleted Josh's number even though it felt wrong. Little by little, I made myself smaller just to keep the peace. At first, I thought I was choosing love. Later, I realized I was choosing survival. Aiden started isolating me without even raising his voice. He'd say things like, "Why do you need therapy when you have me?" Or, "That friend doesn't really get you like I do." And it wasn't long before I stopped seeing people altogether. Because every time I tried to make a life beyond him, he made sure I paid for it. Emotionally, psychologically. He never hit me. Never left bruises I could photograph. But the bruises on my spirit, they bloomed every day. And yet, I stayed. Because trauma has a cruel way of twisting comfort into control. And he had wrapped himself so tightly around my grief that I couldn't tell where I ended and he began. Until the day I found the journal. It was buried under a pile of books on his desk. One I hadn't seen before. I didn't mean to snoop. I was just cleaning. But when I opened it, my world shifted. Inside were pages and pages of entries. About me. About how he chose me. How he knew from the first moment he saw me outside that hospital that I was perfect for his project. That he wanted someone, broken but beautiful. Someone he could mold. Reshape. Control her gently until she becomes exactly what I want. I couldn't breathe. There were notes about my reactions. My fears. My boundaries. And how to slowly erase each one. He had been studying me. Not loving me. I dropped the journal like it burned. Because it did. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling while realization sank in like poison. Aiden didn't save me. He hunted me. He found me at my most vulnerable, not to heal me, but to own me. And now, he thought he did. But he was wrong. Because something inside me, something I thought had died with my mother, ignited again. Rage. Cold. Focused. Sharp. He didn't know it yet. But I was done playing the girl he could mold. I was going to show him what it felt like to be torn apart from the inside out. Slowly. Silently. And permanently. I didn't confront him. Not yet. Rage is loud, but revenge. Real revenge. Is patient. It waits. It watches. And I had watched long enough. I spent the next few days pretending. Smiling when he walked in. Kissing him softly on the cheek. Telling him I loved him while tasting the lie on my tongue. He didn't notice the difference. He didn't see the shift behind my eyes. That was his first mistake. He thought he had broken me. But he'd only buried me. And now, I was crawling out of the grave he built. I started planning. Slowly. Carefully. Like stitching together a weapon made of memories, lies, and silence. The first thing I did was get a new phone. Not to text friends. I didn't have many left, thanks to him. But to record. Every word. Every manipulation. Every gaslighting moment that he slipped into conversation like venom into a cup of tea. Remember when you begged me not to leave you? You're not strong without me, you know that, right? Everything you have now is because of me. Click. Save file. Every phrase became a nail in the coffin I was quietly building for him. Next, I went back to therapy, but in secret. A new counselor. One who understood what covert abuse looked like. She didn't flinch when I told her how he studied me like a broken doll. She didn't question why I stayed. Instead, she handed me back my voice. Little by little, I remembered who I had been before him. Not the broken girl on the hospital bench, but the fighter who stayed up all night researching treatment plans when my mom's doctors gave up. The woman who once dreamed of publishing her own poetry. The girl who wore combat boots to her mother's funeral because she knew grief was a battle and she was already in it. I started writing again. Not poems. Plans. Detailed, ruthless, methodical revenge. I knew Aiden's patterns better than he did. I knew his passwords, his secrets, the fake name he used when talking to other women online. Yes, I found those too. He was playing games behind my back. Flirting. Manipulating. He didn't just destroy me. He collected broken women like trophies. It made my purpose clearer. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about every girl who ever sat in a room with shaking hands, wondering how love turned into a cage. And I was done waiting for justice. So I began laying traps. The first was small. I asked him to send me money for groceries. I made sure it came from his account. Then I bought a copy of his journal. Printed it. Every single page. Sent it to myself from an anonymous email. The next step was harder. I reached out to one of the women he'd been messaging. The ones he thought I'd never find. Her name was Natalie. She lived 2 cities over. She thought he was single. Kind. Gentle. Familiar story. I told her everything. At first, she didn't believe me. So I sent her screenshots. She stopped responding for 3 days. Then she sent me a voice message. Shaking. Crying. He did the same thing to me. He made me think I was the only one. We weren't. And we wouldn't be the last if I didn't stop him. So I asked her for one thing. Trust me. Don't block him. Not yet. Just follow my lead. She agreed. And that's when the real fun began. Because while he thought I was curled up in bed, healing from the loss he thought he delivered, I was out there, writing his ending. One where the villain doesn't walk away clean. One where the broken girl doesn't stay broken. And it started with the one thing Aiden never saw coming. My silence. Because silence, when weaponized, can be the loudest scream of all. Every detail had to be perfect. No chaos. No outbursts. Just a quiet, precise dismantling of the empire Aiden had built out of my pain. I started slipping away from him, slowly enough that he wouldn't notice. Fewer sleepovers. Less texting. More I'm tired, and I have to work late. He thought I was slipping back into depression. He even tried to reattach himself more forcefully. I don't like how distant you've been, he said one night, brushing my hair behind my ear. Don't disappear on me, Elena. You know I'm the only one who understands you. I looked into his eyes and smiled. I'm not going anywhere. That was the last real truth I ever told him. Because I wasn't going anywhere. I was waiting for the right moment to end him. Meanwhile, Natalie and I were laying the groundwork. We found 3 more women he had spoken to, manipulated, and discarded. All in different cities. All with eerily similar stories. Each one thought she was the only one. Each one had once thought he was her savior. We formed a group chat. We called it Project Closure. But I had no interest in closure. I wanted justice. Cold. Ruthless. Personal. Natalie agreed to be the bait. She kept flirting with him through messages while we gathered screenshots of every lie he told her. His promises. His manipulation. His favorite line? You feel different. I don't want to break you. How ironic. He used that same line on me. On all of us. Meanwhile, I was preparing the digital news. I compiled the voice recordings. Photos of the journal. His texts. The fake profiles. The pattern of psychological abuse. I even created a timeline, connecting each woman to the days he was supposedly busy or traveling for work. I built a portfolio that painted him exactly as he was. A predator in a lover's skin. And I wasn't just going to expose him to the women he hurt. I was going to dismantle his entire life. He worked at a local tech firm, customer-facing, very reputation-dependent. On the surface, he was charming, trustworthy, and emotionally intelligent golden boy. But the higher you rise, the harder you fall. I sent an anonymous email to his HR department with a fraction of the evidence. Just enough to get them curious. The rest, I scheduled for a full leak. Website. Video. Public drop. It wasn't about destroying him in one strike. It was about unraveling him. I wanted to watch as the world he built, out of my body, my heart, and the wreckage of every woman he used, crumbled under him. But I wasn't done yet. There was one more move. One more scar I wanted to leave. So I invited him over. One last night. One last performance. I cleaned the apartment. Lit the same candles he once gave me when I had panic attacks. Played the playlist he made me when I was grieving. He walked in like he always did, smiling, confident, entitled. I missed you, he said, pulling me into his arms. I was starting to think you didn't love me anymore. I looked up at him, wide-eyed. Of course I love you. And I kissed him like I used to. Because this wasn't about how I felt anymore. This was about how I wanted him to feel. Safe. Wanted. Untouchable. Because people like Aiden never see it coming. They never think the shattered girl is the one holding the knife. That night, everything was deliberate. I cooked his favorite meal, garlic butter pasta, with that overpriced red wine he always claimed made him feel cultured. I wore the soft beige sweater he once said made me look so easy to love. I curled my hair, painted my lips the exact shade he liked. He thought he had me back. He thought the leash was wrapped tightly around my throat again. But this time, I held the other end. He sat at my kitchen table, swirling wine in his glass, talking about his day like nothing had ever happened. Like he hadn't built an entire reality around deceiving me. Work's been rough lately, he sighed. They're watching everything now. Like they don't trust us. Probably just some HR scare. I smiled over my fork. I knew exactly what scare he was talking about. I had sent that email, and it was only the beginning. After dinner, he pulled me to the couch and wrapped his arms around me. His fingers traced my collarbone. His voice was low. God, I miss this. I missed you. You're not going to vanish on me again, right? I tilted my head, met his gaze. I'm right here, I whispered. And that was the truth, because I wanted him to remember this night and every nightmare he'd have for the rest of his life. I leaned in and kissed him slowly, carefully, memorizing the taste of the man I once thought had saved me, before I found out he had just been setting the stage for the kill. He stayed the night. He thought it meant victory. He didn't know it was a goodbye. The next morning, I made him breakfast, kissed him on the cheek, told him, drive safe, just like I always did. But as the door closed behind him, I locked it. Not just the physical lock. The emotional one, too. That part of me that still hoped, still wondered if he was ever real, it died quietly as his footsteps faded down the hall. And then I turned to my laptop. At 9 a.m., the website went live. AidenRevealed.com. Title: The Man Who Collected Broken Women. It contained everything. His voice recordings, his journal scans, testimonies from 5 women, screenshots of chats, timelines, photos, his manipulative messages, word for word. It was a museum of his cruelty. And I sent it to everyone. His workplace, his friends, his ex-girlfriends, the local women's forums, even his mother. I didn't hide. The video started with my voice. My name is Elena. And this is the story of the man who held me while I cried, just so he could learn how to make me weep forever. Within hours, it went viral. By noon, the HR department had suspended him. By 2 p.m., the local community was sharing warnings. By 5 p.m., his name was being discussed on social platforms, stitched into stories of psychological abuse and emotional grooming. And through it all, I was silent. I didn't respond, didn't explain, because this wasn't about defending myself anymore. It was about letting the world see him as he was, unmasked. And when he finally called me, his voice shaking, demanding to know what I had done, I just listened. I didn't cry. I didn't shout. I simply said, I gave you what you always wanted, Aiden. Attention. Then I hung up. That was the last time I ever heard his voice. I thought I'd feel instant relief. Like some tidal wave of justice would wash over me and carry the pain away. But revenge, it doesn't heal. It doesn't fix the scars. It just gives you silence where screaming used to be. And sometimes, that's enough. The fallout came fast. Aiden tried to deny everything at first. Of course he did. He called the site fake, claimed the women were obsessed, bitter, crazy. He tried to paint himself as the victim, someone being targeted for no reason. But the evidence was too overwhelming. Screenshots can't lie. Voices don't change. 5 women with no ties to one another, all telling the same story? No one bought it. Not his company. Not his neighbors. Not even his friends. His silence online became deafening. His Instagram disappeared within a day. His LinkedIn the next. The final blow came when Natalie posted a short video, her face bare, eyes swollen from crying. She said, "If you've ever wondered what manipulation looks like when it's wearing a smile, this is him. And this is how we stop men like him." It was raw, heartbreaking, powerful, and it spread like fire. A week later, I got a message from an unknown number. He got fired. He's been kicked out of his apartment. His life is in pieces. Just thought you'd want to know. I stared at the screen, unmoved. It wasn't joy I felt. It was clarity. Because it wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming the pieces of myself he tried to erase. I walked into a bookstore the next day, the one I used to work at before he made me quit. I asked for my job back. The manager looked surprised, but smiled and said, "You've always had a place here." The moment I walked behind the counter again, I felt like I could breathe for the first time in years. People started reaching out. Old friends I thought I'd lost forever. One of them, Julia, messaged me, "I'm sorry I disappeared. I didn't know what was happening to you. But I'm here now. If you want to talk." I did. We met for coffee that weekend. She didn't ask for the full story. She just listened. Sometimes, that's all you need. A witness to your survival. Still, part of me expected Aiden to try something. A confrontation. A final act of cruelty. A plea. But he didn't. He disappeared. Some said he moved. Others said he was trying to sue. But his case had no ground. The truth was too heavy. He couldn't escape it. And that's when it hit me. He didn't just lose his job, his apartment, or his reputation. He lost control. The one thing he lived for. The one thing he built his entire identity around. I hadn't just hurt him. I had unwritten him. Erased the illusion. Stripped away the charm. Exposed the predator. He had nothing left to hide behind. And now, for the first time, he was the one walking into rooms with eyes on him, whispers following him like shadows. For once, he was the one who couldn't breathe. And the best part? I didn't have to lift a finger. He destroyed himself. I just handed him the mirror. People say revenge is about power. But that's not true. Revenge is about clarity, the kind that comes when you finally see someone for who they truly are. And decide you're not going to let them write your ending. Aiden disappeared for a while. He stopped posting, stopped calling, stopped trying to spin the narrative. But abusers never really go silent. They go dormant. They wait. And sure enough, 3 months after everything blew up, he showed up outside my building. Like a ghost. Like nothing had happened. I was coming home from work when I saw him. Leaning against his car, eyes sunken, hair disheveled, like the weight of his sins had finally started to pull at his skin. "Elena," he called out. His voice was soft. Too soft. I stopped several feet away. "Don't," I said, holding up my hand. "You don't get to say my name anymore." But he stepped closer anyway. Just a little. Just enough to still try and own the space between us. I lost everything," he said, with a pitiful half smile. "My job, my home, Your victims?" I snapped. "Your supply? Your ability to destroy people without consequence?" He flinched. "Good. You made me think I needed you," I continued, voice steady now. "You watched me fall apart and smiled. You studied my pain. And you used it like a weapon." His expression cracked then, because he realized something in that moment. I wasn't scared of him anymore. "You don't understand," he tried again. "I loved you." "No," I said coldly. "You loved having power over me. You love controlling someone weaker. But I'm not that girl anymore. She died the day I realized you never wanted to fix me. You just wanted to keep me broken enough to stay." I turned to walk away, but then I stopped. Because he needed to hear the last part. The truth he would never unhear. "I didn't ruin your life, Aiden. I just showed the world who you've always been." And now, you get to live with the consequences. Every whisper, every door that closes, every night you spend alone in the hell you created. He didn't say another word, just stood there, like a man who finally understood he wasn't the story's hero, or even its victim. He was just the ending, a cautionary tale. I walked away, and this time, I didn't look back. That was the last time I ever saw him. But he still exists, in every woman's warning, in every screenshot passed quietly between friends, in every instinct that says, don't trust the charming ones too quickly. And me? I'm not broken anymore. I go to work. I write again. I laugh without guilt. I love slowly now, carefully, but not fearfully. Because now I know the signs. Now I trust my voice. And when people ask how I healed, I tell them this. He saw me broken and said I was his world. Promised to fix me piece by piece. But when I finally trusted him, he erased every bit of who I was. But then, I turned every moment of his joy into the pain he could never escape. Because monsters don't always live in shadows. Sometimes, they hold your hand, whisper promises, call you beautiful while they build your coffin. But the thing they forget? Sometimes, the girl they bury comes back to bury them.